When I refused to let my husband's parents use the house deed as collateral, his father snapped, "You'd be nothing without us." My husband just sat there, silent. That night, I printed one document. The next morning, they found out the house was no longer in our name, and it broke them. Edward and I met during a gallery opening downtown. He took photographs. I designed the space. It was easy between us at first. He was gentle, soft-spoken, charming in a way that made you lean in closer to hear what he had to say. I was in my early 30s, already established as an architect, finally at a place in my life where I could build not just homes, but a future. When I bought the Craftsman in Charleston, it felt like a turning point. I paid in full using my inheritance from my grandmother, the woman who taught me the value of independence and clean lines. Edward moved in weeks after the wedding. He didn't pay a cent toward it, but I didn't mind. At first. Frank and Yvonne, his parents, came to the housewarming in stiff pastel and judgment. They walked around like real estate agents inspecting a foreclosure. Frank smirked when he said, "It's cute, for now," and Yvonne asked to see the deed, just in case anything ever happened. I laughed politely and declined. Edward said nothing. That silence wasn't just uncomfortable, it was familiar. Because deep down, I knew exactly what was coming. And I knew I'd be the only one standing in its way. It started with the filing cabinet. One Saturday afternoon, while I was out in the garden sketching plans for a porch addition, I walked inside to find Frank bent over my filing drawers in the study. He didn't even flinch when I caught him. "Just looking for some paper," he said, casual as anything, like my private documents were a shared family printer. I didn't respond. I just stood there, heart hammering. Yvonne popped her head in behind him, holding a flash drive. "We thought we could help digitize your important files. You never know when an emergency might hit," she said sweetly, like it wasn't the most invasive thing a guest could offer. I didn't ask how they even knew which drawer held the deed. I already knew. Edward walked in a few moments later, yawning from a nap, like he was stumbling into a sitcom scene. "They just care, babe," he said after I confronted him. "They're trying to help." You always think the worst. That night, I checked the lockbox where I kept the deed, the will, the closing statements. Everything was still there. But the next morning, the spare key we kept in the laundry room drawer, just in case, was gone. I asked Edward. He shrugged. Maybe we moved it? We hadn't. I knew it. So I changed the locks, front, back, even the studio door. I paid for a locksmith to come while Edward was out and made sure only I had the new copies. When he got home and tried to use the old key, it didn't fit. His reaction was quiet but unmistakable. Not rage, just that wounded pout he reserved for when I made decisions without asking for permission he never earned. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is," he said, rubbing his temple like I was the problem, like protecting my property was paranoia and not common sense. But I saw it then, clear as blueprints. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. Frank and Yvonne weren't just nosy. They were testing limits, mapping weaknesses. And Edward? He wasn't neutral. He was a bridge between me and them, and he had no intention of ever standing on my side. So I said nothing. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just noted the date in my journal, locked the cabinet with a new code, and went back to designing blueprints, this time, ones for escape. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. I was reviewing zoning ordinances with the city planner when I saw the unknown number flash on screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. "Hi, is this Isabella? Just confirming your home listing. We've had a few interested buyers already, and the online photos look fantastic. Great staging work." The blood drained from my face. "I didn't list my house," I said, my voice flat. The agent stammered, confused, then apologized. I hung up before he could say more. My hands shook as I typed my address into the MLS database. There it was, my home. Photos of my living room, bedroom, even the office with the blue accent wall and the antique drafting desk. Someone had entered while I was gone. A weekend trip for work in Asheville. I'd only been away 3 days. That was all it took. I called Edward immediately. Why is our house listed for sale? Silence. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. But he did. I could hear it in his voice, flat, evasive, like a student caught cheating with the answer sheet still in hand. I took screenshots of the listing and drove home early. That night, I scoured the house. Sure enough, I found signs of tampering. A missing vase from the entryway. My framed architectural certificate removed from the study wall. A stack of brochures in the kitchen drawer, real estate flyers with the phrase "charming historic opportunity," "great bones," "turnkey condition" written across the front. And then came the message. It was from Rachel, Edward's sister. We'd met only once, briefly, during the wedding. She'd moved to Atlanta years ago and kept her distance from the family. Isabella, the message read, I saw the listing. I need to tell you something. They did this to my ex too. You're not the first. When my ex wouldn't open his finances, Dad tried to sell their apartment. Be careful. They'll try to corner you. I sat there in shock, rereading her words. Suddenly everything snapped into focus. The lockbox incident, the missing key, Edward's increasing silence, his sudden interest in financial security. He wasn't confused. He was complicit. This wasn't just overbearing parenting. This was calculated. Staged. An ambush in slow motion. I stared at the listing until the screen blurred and whispered to no one in particular, they really think this house is theirs. But now I knew better, and I would act accordingly. Isabella didn't scream. She didn't accuse. She didn't even mention the listing to Edward. Not yet. Instead, she went quiet. Controlled. Focused. That same week, she scheduled a meeting with her lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Brianna Lane who'd handled an estate dispute for a client of hers last year. I need to protect my property, Isabella said simply, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside were scanned copies of the house deed, her inheritance disbursement, and a list of unusual recent activity, including the unauthorized listing. Brianna looked at the file, then up at her. You're not paranoid, she said. You're right on time. Isabella filed a deed restriction notice with the Charleston County Clerk, flagging her property so that any transfer attempt would trigger an automatic legal review and alert. She also requested the Records Department begin a forensic audit of recent title access logs. Meanwhile, she moved every financial and legal document, birth certificate, property file, insurance, even the trust ledger, into a secure lockbox at a private storage unit across town. She changed every password, added two-factor authentication to everything. At home, though, she smiled. She cooked dinner like nothing had changed. When Yvonne sent a text about Sunday brunch, bring your famous scones, Isabella replied with a cheerful wouldn't miss it. She played the part of the trusting wife, the one who never suspected a thing. And in the background, she began documenting. She took time-stamped photos of every room in the house, every piece of art, every certificate, every heirloom. She noted changes, no matter how small. She kept track of when she left and returned home. She logged interactions with Edward, especially the moments when he slipped into vague deflections or quoted his father. She even called the real estate agent who had listed her house and requested, politely, that they send over the signed authorization form for her records. The agent stammered. I was told you'd already signed. I'll get back to you. She nodded. Thank you. Please do. The next day, she had the locks changed again, this time installing a smart system only she could access remotely. She wasn't just defending her home. She was preparing the battlefield. Every move they made, she countered in silence. Every smile she gave, every polite thank you was laced with strategy. They didn't know she was preparing her exit, not just from the house, but from the lies they'd built around her. Isabella wasn't asking for peace. She was building her own. Brick by brick. And this time, it would be untouchable. The panic didn't arrive all at once. It trickled in like a slow leak behind drywall. It started during Sunday dinner, when Isabella had just set down a tray of roasted vegetables and Frank, fork in hand, blurted, "Where are the updated house papers?" The room went still. Yvonne gave a little cough, like she was embarrassed for him, but said nothing to stop him. Edward froze, mid-sip of wine. Isabella didn't blink. "Handled," she said softly, not even looking up. "Everything's been updated through the proper legal channels." Frank's jaw clenched. "We're family. We deserve to know what's going on." "You'll know what you need to know," Isabella replied. She smiled and passed the potatoes. That night, the emails started. The first from Yvonne was filled with tight, clipped phrases. "You're shutting us out. We've only ever tried to help. If you don't trust us, maybe you shouldn't be part of this family." The second one, bolder, "You're playing a dangerous game." Isabella flagged both, forwarded them to her lawyer, and added them to the growing folder titled Leverage. The next morning, Edward lingered by the kitchen counter longer than usual. "Hey, what's the password for your desktop?" he asked casually. "I wanted to check that spreadsheet we used to keep." She didn't look up from her coffee. "We don't use that anymore. And access is earned." He laughed, an awkward, hollow sound, but didn't press. Later that week, Edward came home and stood at the mailbox, staring at the new nameplate. Isabella ran. Just her name. No Mr. and Mrs., no joint listing. The message couldn't have been clearer. He stormed inside, waving junk mail like it proved something. "Why'd you take my name off the box?" Isabella looked up from her drafting table. "Because you don't get to live halfway in this marriage and still claim full benefits." He didn't have a response. The next day, she caught him pacing outside the county clerk's office downtown, waiting for something. Maybe a loophole. Maybe a miracle. He never saw her across the street, watching from a cafe window. The panic had begun. Not hers, his. And it was only going to get louder. The reconciliation dinner was held at Frank and Yvonne's house, long dining table, too many candles, and a ham glazed to distraction, as if food could smooth over betrayal. Isabella arrived right on time, not alone. She walked in with Rachel, calm as ever, and her attorney, Nora Fields, who held a slim black folder like it was a scalpel. The air shifted the moment they stepped inside. Frank smirked, Yvonne's eyes darted, and Edward looked like he was trying to remember if he'd deleted enough emails. They didn't even make it through the salad. "I brought something," Isabella said, unfolding the folder slowly, laying out the documents like cards at a final hand. "These are property title transfer attempts made without my knowledge, complete with signatures forged during the week I was in Atlanta." Her voice was steady. "Here's the quick claim deed your son tried to hide in a stack of refinance paperwork. Here's the online listing with photos taken while I was gone. And here," she tapped a paper with a red tag, "is the county report showing attempted deed changes were submitted 3 times by Frank's business account." Silence. Then Rachel stood. "And here's something else," she said, pulling out her own copy. "Bank statements. Proof Frank's been siphoning money from a family trust that was meant to help with grandchildren's education. He used it to initiate purchase on another home. One meant to replace Isabella's." Frank's face reddened like a switch flipped. "You ungrateful little." "Don't," Isabella said, holding up a hand. "Don't make this about gratitude. You tried to take what wasn't yours." Yvonne burst into tears, whispering prayers like a shield. Edward's voice finally broke the noise. "I didn't know about the trust money. But you knew about everything else," Isabella said, not unkindly. "You let them walk through my life with muddy boots and didn't say a word." He couldn't meet her eyes. She slid the final document from the folder, divorce papers, clipped neatly with a gold binder, and placed them at the head of the table. "I won't fight. I won't scream. I won't play the game. But I will walk away." She stood, straightened her jacket, and turned to Rachel. "Ready?" Rachel nodded. The lawyer followed. As she stepped outside into the cool Charleston air, Isabella didn't look back. She didn't need to. The house was burning, metaphorically, and for once, someone else would be left to clean up the mess. 3 weeks passed without a word, and then it came. A photo. Sent late at night. It was of the living room, hers once, stripped bare. No plants, no light, no warmth. Just that antique fireplace mantel she'd restored with her own hands, now collecting dust. Below it, a single line, "I just wanted a future with you." No apology. No ownership. Just regret dipped in self-pity. Isabella stared at it for a moment, then locked her phone and went back to her book. She didn't reply. That part of her story was closed. Rachel called the next morning. "It's official," she said. "Frank and Yvonne are under investigation." County clerk flagged multiple irregularities in title submissions. Real estate boards involved now too. And guess what? They traced similar activity tied to 3 other properties. Isabella didn't sound surprised. They got greedy. "Yep," Rachel said. "Edward moved back in with them last weekend." Of course he did. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man who once asked for access to everything she built was now sleeping in a guest room in the house of the people who tore his marriage apart. The same man who had stood by while they tried to claim what wasn't theirs was now stuck with the fallout. Isabella sipped her coffee slowly, gazing out her window at the morning light streaming through open curtains she had picked out herself. No shadows, no noise. Just silence and sunlight. "They're unraveling," Rachel added quietly. Isabella smiled. "Let them." 6 months later, Isabella wakes up to the golden wash of sunlight pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Asheville loft, a space she designed herself, down to the last hidden drawer and skylight pane. The walls are warm, textured with reclaimed wood, splashed with art she collected on solo road trips across the Blue Ridge. The home hums with her spirit now. No one else's name is on the deed. No one else's opinion is in the blueprint. Just hers. She works remotely for a boutique architecture firm, managing high-profile sustainability projects while mentoring interns over video calls. But that's only part of her world now. Most afternoons, she hikes solo, trails that wind through the hills like whispered secrets, each switchback loosening the grip of a past that tried to silence her. And once a month, in a sunlit community center tucked near the river, she tells her story to a circle of women half her age and twice as unsure. She doesn't dramatize it. She doesn't flinch. She just says the truth plainly. "They tried to claim my home. What they didn't know was, I am the foundation." And every time, a hush falls over the room. Not of pity, not of awe, but of recognition. Her divorce finalized, the lawsuits dropped, the investigations closed. Rachel still checks in from time to time. They laugh now, real belly laughs about forged quitclaim deeds and Sunday dinners that felt like business meetings. Edward? She hasn't heard from him. Doesn't expect to. The woman who once held her breath while someone rifled through her private drawers now stands barefoot in her kitchen, sipping coffee brewed just the way she likes it. No surveillance. No second guesses. No man standing beside her just to keep her standing still. She doesn't call herself a survivor. She calls herself an architect. Of homes. Of life. Of boundaries nobody will cross again. Freedom, she's learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet click of a lock you chose yourself. Sometimes, it's a lease with only your signature. And sometimes, it's a story you get to tell not for attention, but so someone else recognizes the blueprint in her own life. She didn't just rebuild the walls. She rewrote the floor plan. And this time, the door only opens from the inside. Freedom, she's learned, isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet click of a lock you chose yourself. Sometimes, it's a lease with only your signature. And sometimes, it's a story you get to tell not for attention, but so someone else recognizes the blueprint in her own life. She didn't just rebuild the walls, she rewrote the floor plan. And this time, the door only opens from the inside.